Hello, everyone. This week I'm joined by my friend Nevada, also known as Nevadastyles on Instagram.
Hi, Nevada here.
Nice to have you. Nevada is one of my best friends from college, and she's the perfect guest for this week's episode on Bicoastal lifestyles. She is a New York City native who has been living and working in both New York City and LA for several years. We're going to be talking a lot about both cities on this week's episode and what motivates people to be bicoastal. This episode I've actually wanted to do for a very long time, and I'm excited to finally be doing it.
I know, I'm really glad that we actually waited because I know you floated this idea to me previously, but we're actually coming up on the 2-month anniversary of me actually having an apartment in Los Angeles and in New York, which feels very exciting because it's something I've been talking about and threatening and pining for a very long time. So I actually feel equipped to have this conversation now.
Yeah, in my mind, you already were bicoastal because, as we're going to get into, you were staying with family and you had a home base to live out of while you were in New York City.
And you're
But yeah,
not the
now you
only
actually
one.
have two apartments in both.
Yeah, I did step on you there, so I don't know if you wanna repeat it, but you're not the only one who's like, "I thought you were already there." People keep asking me where I live, and I just say, "Yes." They're like, "Are you in New York or LA?" And I say, "Yes."
Yeah. So let's have you introduce yourself to the audience to start out. So, can you give a brief summary of your life story? Nothing too crazy, but just so people learn a little bit about who you are.
Okay, so I'm in Nevada, and I'm a hair artist based between Brooklyn and Los Angeles. I'm coming up on my 10th year of being a licensed cosmetologist, but I grew up in a hair salon. My mom does hair, so sometimes it feels like I've been doing hair forever. I really see hair and coloring hair as just an extension of my art practice. So when I'm doing a haircut or anything more sculptural, like an updo or a lot of styles, I really see it as a sculpture where you're thinking about the foundation and building it up. And then when we do color, it's more like painting where you're dealing with lightness and darkness.
Yeah.
I love doing hair. It's been a really, really positive thing for me. And I don't consider myself a specialist by nature. I'm always kind of like doing a couple things just to give, like, this month as an example, I did braiding for a brand activation event. I did a bride and her mom. I have an artist client who I look after her hair for red carpets. Today, I was working on another brand activation, assisting a much bigger hairstylist than me, and then I went to the salon to do a creative hair color. So that's just, like, a day. I mean, I described a month and a week and a day, but point is it's always, like, a mix of things.
Yeah.
I'm pretty comfortable, like, working out of my backpack or whatever I need to work, you know?
Yeah. Because, I mean, you just finished an appointment like less than an hour ago. So, yeah, you keep pretty busy.
I can't sit still, it's a gift and a curse.
Yeah. And, you did go to art school with me. We both went to SAIC. So, that's when you talk about your work being sculptural and artistic, it's coming from a genuine place because you do actually make art quite often. And I wanted to ask you as the next question. So, you're born in New York City, you spent a year in Chicago, and you spent a lot of your adult life in Los Angeles. Can you give a rough timeline of when you moved between the three cities?
Yeah, so I spent my first 18 years of life in Brooklyn, mostly in the same neighborhood, about a mile or 2 from where my mom was born and raised, so that's like a little hometown.
In Park Slope?
Yeah, so I grew up in Park Slope, and so did my mom. Park Slope was completely different when she grew up in the '70s or '80s than it was when I grew up in the 2000s. And then I went to school in Chicago for 1 year. You and me
Yeah.
had a couple classes together, but my best friend from there, my randomly assigned college roommate and, like, ride or die homie, my other Chicago best friend, she's from Chicago Chinatown on the Red Line. It's called Sir Mac Chinatown, and to me, when I think of Chicago, that's what I think of, even though I
Yeah.
was living in the Loop. And then if we wanna talk about my life before that, I used to commute to school. I don't think it's very typical for, like, middle schoolers to take the train, to take the subway to school, but that was sort of what we did when I was young. So I think I've always been used to moving around, like, taking my 2 feet to get somewhere. So the idea of moving around constantly does not seem that strange to me.
Yeah.
And then during COVID, I moved to California. My partner was really the one pushing the move, but I was kind of ready for a change. So before I was even admitting to anyone that I was moving to California, I got better at driving. Like, I knew how to drive, but I kinda locked in those skills,
Yeah.
and I moved my cosmetology or I didn't move, I additionally got a cosmetology license in California. So I did that before I moved, and this was in, like, my official move date was March of 2022, but I'd already been commuting for maybe 6 months, and basically, I'd go to California, and I was doing some, like, networking stuff, but it was still pretty COVID-y, so I was mostly staying at home. I would hang out and hand knot wigs in my backyard with my dog, and then I would kinda go back to New York, make some money, and then I'd come back to California. Because at the time, the majority of my business was based in New York, so I would go to New York, get my little coins, go to California, hang out, relax, enjoy the sunshine.
Yeah, it took you a while to build up clienteles in both states.
Absolutely, and, you always want things to be a lateral move, but it's very often not a lateral move. There's always
Yeah.
trade-offs. Maybe it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but I did lose quite a few clients there, and now I'm kind of in a situation where I have more clients in California, so I come here, get my coin, and then trying to figure out how to make it balanced.
Yeah. So, yeah, you've lived in New York State, in Illinois for a year, also California. But yeah, but you're named after the state of Nevada, but you have never actually lived there.
I never lived in the state of Nevada. My parents actually got my name from the baby book. Like, I guess in the mid-90s, New York State would give new parents, like, a congratulation package, and it had a book of the top 50 boys and girls names, and Nevada was one of the top 50 boys' names, even though I've never met a guy in Nevada. I've met 2 other women in Nevada, but I've never met a guy in Nevada, so it's kinda funny.
Yeah. I love asking people the story of how they got their name because it's easier to remember someone's name when you know the actual story of how they got it. Like, I actually do that as an icebreaker when I teach art classes and things like that.
That's really smart. And people love the sound of their own name.
Yeah. So thus far, you've only like lived within the US, but your career as a hairstylist has brought you all over the world. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so in 2018, I did like almost a full Fashion Week tour. So for those who don't know, Fashion Week happens several times a year. I'm not going to remember when it is offhand, but usually it'll be a couple days in New York, a couple days in London, a couple days in Milan, and then it ends in Paris. So in 2018, I was on like 2 teams. So with those 2 teams, I could justify going to London and Milan, and I had, like, sufficient work to make it worth the trip. That was a fantastic experience because I was so young. I was, like, 22 or something.
Yeah, I think I saw you around that time, and I remember like telling some other friends like, "Oh yeah, she's gonna go work in Europe for like 6 weeks," and everyone was like, "Wow."
And then I had a 2-week trip in Palma de Mallorca, and that was a really international team, which I enjoyed because Palma, it's part of Spain.
Yeah,
But there's not, I don't remember there being a direct flight, and I remember one of the people on our team was, like, Greek and Spanish, like, the team was not predominantly Spanish, like, a lot of the talent was from all over. Our team was from New York.
yeah,
And then last year, I had the opportunity to work in Mexico City for 2 weeks, and that was not my first time working in Mexico City, so that was a really positive experience because I had that feeling of being a local in multiple places, and some of the wonderful, lovely people I met. My first work trip in Mexico, I was able to put them on our team for the second work trip, so it's, like, nice to have homies, you know? You're always like, "Oh, who do I need to know? Who can I get on the project? Who can I hold the door open for?" You know? Like, the opposite of gatekeeping, so
yeah. That's one of the benefits of living, internationally or by coastally is that you're able to maintain connections that you otherwise wouldn't if you were just based in one place. And you kind of already like answered this in the beginning, but at what point did you like officially consider yourself to be living by coastal? Is it, as of this year once you got your second apartment?
having the lease felt legitimizing because I'm very privileged to be able to stay with my family in New York. But I don't know, anyone who goes home, like, all of a sudden you're 18 again, so it didn't feel that different. I felt like I was picking up my old life, and
Yeah.
now it feels more like a new adult life.
Yeah. But where you're staying now, it's pretty close to where you grew up, right?
Yeah, I'm now living within a mile of where my parents are, which is the right amount of distance for us because 'cause we're very close, but It's nice for me to have my own space, and I also totally take advantage, like, for Halloween, I kinda wanted to go out, so I dropped off my dog at my mom's house and didn't pick her up for 48 hours. It was fantastic to just not worry about my little precious angel baby. My little chihuahua was very happy at her grandparents' house with all her cousins,
Yeah,
which are my mom's 2 dogs.
cool. So,
Oh my gosh, can we have an aside for my dog?
sure.
My dog Tiny is so fabulous. She is on my lease in Los Angeles. It says, "The dog, Tiny, is permitted to live here." And she also has, they don't call it a frequent flyer number, they call it like a service animal number. But you best believe we book our flights and we call the airline and we give her a little number. So not only is Tiny on the lease by name, she has her own frequent flyer number and she's been featured in some print magazines and met many other celebrity dogs. So Tiny is very fabulous, and I need to give her a shout out.
Yeah. So thank you for introducing yourself. We can now start to talk about, bicoastal lifestyles and weave your own experience into the topic. And I think a good place to start out is to talk about like why it's fun to kind of think about the idea of being bicoastal. And that's because people often think of Americans as having no culture. But then if you look at the country's two largest cities, there are really large cultural and geographic differences between both New York City and Los Angeles.
Yeah. I'm a native New Yorker. I will always be New York first and like say it with my chest, right? So that's definitely the lens that colors in my opinion. Most New Yorkers do not necessarily identify with the majority of America.
Yeah.
To give you an example, when I'm abroad, someone asks where I'm from, I will tell them New York. They'll probably guess I'm from the States, but to me, telling them I'm from New York gives them more useful information than that. And I also have, it's a bit of a joke, but people be like, "Oh, are you from LA?" And I'm like, "Don't say that to me. Like, don't call me that." But at the same time, energetically, sometimes I can understand their confusion. Ugh.
I mean, I think that's somewhat common for urban denizens in the United States where they oftentimes identify with their city first. Like I know for me, I identify as a Chicagoan first. And
Yeah.
for like Americans who live in different settings, like say if they're suburban, they typically identify with their state first. And then if they live in a rural area, it's typically their county or a particular portion of the state, like say northwestern Iowa or something like that. But
Hmm.
I don't think that most Americans actually are really identifying as Americans first. Like oftentimes politicians will say that, particularly if they're running on the federal level. But I think in our personal lives, we have other allegiances.
And the other big difference is that New York is significantly older, and it was once New Amsterdam, and the way the streets are, especially in Lower Manhattan, really recall Amsterdam, London, this sort of quote unquote old world
Yeah.
where I forget the quote, I believe it's Richard Gere, and he talks about Los Angeles being all the architectural styles shaken in a bag and thrown about. Like, the terrain is specific to California, and the palm trees are quite iconic, but I always say you're comparing apples and oranges. I have a really hard time, like, grappling putting the 2 together. And sort of back to the American culture question, we do have culture, but it's a culture of, like, rugged individualism, which could be represented by Los Angeles or New York very easily.
Yeah. I do think that there are pretty tangible differences, but we conceptualize the two cities as being diametrically opposed. Like, there's this phrase that I've seen tossed around on TikTok and Instagram, which is that Los Angeles is boring heaven and New York is fun hell.
Mm.
And I think people do think of them as kind of being opposites. If there is credence to it actually being tangible, that they're kind of diametrically opposed, it might be through a process called schismogenesis. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Yeah, it's when certain cultural differences can be explained just through the process of groups trying to differentiate themselves from each other. Like sometimes there's not a functional reason other than people being like, okay, the people that we don't like or that we see ourselves as opposite to, we're just doing the opposite of them.
Yeah.
Like I think that partly explains why Los Angeles doubles down on its car-oriented nature at times. It's because it views it as being part of its identity in contrast to other large cities.
What I find is that it attracts the same people. It's like the same quote unquote go getters. Like you have a lot of ambition, you have a dream, you're going to go to this place and make it happen. So you wind up running in the same circles.
Do you think that New York City and Los Angeles view each other as being literal rivals?
I find it very difficult to compare the 2, and I don't think most people do. I find that, like, one of my good friends, she's from the Inland Empire, which is 1 county over from LA,
Yeah.
and she's like, "New York is for toil and struggle."
It's fun hell.
Yeah, it's fun how there is, like, a brutality to it, for sure. My experience as a native New Yorker is that taking the train does not stress me out the way sitting in traffic and driving stresses me out. Like, driving is difficult on my nervous system in a way that taking the train is not.
Yeah.
I have such a hard time comparing them because what I my feeling is that when I'm in New York is I'm very connected, not just to family, but to it's like a very New York thing to, like, yell at someone across the street because you like their outfit. I'll, like, try to talk to someone here, I'll be like, "Oh, you're such and such is so cute," and they don't realize I'm talking to them. It's, like, not part of the culture. There's this, like, this isolation that it's not just when you're sitting in your car, it's all the time, in my opinion. And I'm just gonna go on a tangent. I think it makes people act weird. Like, I find that people in LA act like they're the only person on earth, where
Yeah.
in New York, you're kinda always like, "Am I in the way? Can I move over? Who's over my shoulder?" Like, there's more of this even if it's vigilance, there's still, like, a community-driven nature
Yeah.
that I find to be very missing from Los Angeles. That said, it is more physically tiring to be in New York and have to walk and schlep and this, that, and the other. Like, yeah, sitting in my car is annoying, but I'm not as tired. It's, like, not as physically draining. Like, I can see, you know, your little health app, it shows your steps. I can tell when I'm in LA because my steps go down to, like, 1,000,
Yeah.
3,000, and then you're in Europe or New York, and it's, like, 1,500, 20,000.
Yeah, the last time I was in Los Angeles, you dragged me into a, like, kind of depressing department store just to walk around for an hour, and you didn't need to buy anything, and we didn't buy anything. You just were like, "We need to walk."
Where did I take you?
Oh, it was, near that one Filipino restaurant. I don't even remember, but it was like it was just, like, kind of like a JCPenney or something similar.
Was I on a mission? What was I looking for?
I don't think it was anything. You
Did I
you
take
were
you to Daiso?
no, you really just wanted to walk around.
Was I just trying to get steps in?
You were just trying to get steps in.
I went to the mall the other day, and this guy was walking around with his, like, Fitbit, and I was
Yeah.
like, "A mall walker." He was getting his
Yeah.
steps in, honey.
Yeah. But I wanna circle back to what you were touching on with the temperament of Angelenos as them being kind of, like, unaware of their surroundings, because I do think one of the bigger cultural differences between the 2 cities is the temperament of its residents, because I do see that, say in regards to speed, New Yorkers are generally faster moving, faster talking, Angelenos are slower, and then also attentiveness. Like, New Yorkers are more alert, while Angelenos are checked out. Like, I do notice a difference, especially with customer service. Like, don't take too much offense to this, but I have, like, experiences with customer service in New York City that I would, like, literally never have in Chicago or Los Angeles. Like, people just kind of try to rush you or get annoyed if you're taking too long in this way that, like, I've never seen anywhere else.
Well, from a business point of view, let's say a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
They're let's just, for the sake of math, assume their rent. So you have 2 same-sized restaurants. Let's assume the one in New York's rent is double. That means they need to have twice the amount of table turnover to break even, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it is like we're just used to having to do more in a shorter amount of time. It's kind of a joke in set life where they'll be like, "Oh, the work is so beautiful in Europe, but no one starts shooting till lunch, and then you have to finish by dinner. In New York, the work's amazing, but it's too much. And in LA, it's just bikinis and influencers." Like, I'm kind of oversimplifying, but that's sort of the how we'll, like, talk shit on set.
Yeah.
As far as the temperament goes, okay, so I've been a New Yorker my whole life. As I got older and I started to work with a more international community, I was like, "Oh, I can't use New Yorkisms all the time. Like, I have to switch up my speech to be more internationally understandable," which among other English speakers is not that difficult.
More cosmopolitan.
Yeah, more cosmopolitan. But, I worked for a British hair salon. I worked for an Australian hair salon. They speak English, but it's different. And you start to notice like little mid-Atlantic
Yeah.
accent or turns of phrase because there's accent and there's phrase choice that can really pinpoint where someone comes from, right?
Do you feel like you had more of a New York City accent when you were younger? I don't remember you having one when I first met you that was stronger than it is now.
No, not really. I don't really have a New York accent.
Yeah.
My mom has a bit of a New York accent, especially when she's mad.
Or when she says coffee.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll say something, I'll be like, "Oh, let's get a cab," and I'll be like, "Oh, I was taking a taxi home from prom."
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But yeah, so this kinda like international speech, and then coming to LA, what really bothered me initially is I felt like I would meet people and they would promise me the moon.
Hmm.
I don't really roll like that. I really try to be impeccable to my word. And that's actually so anyway, I'm in LA, people are promising the moon and not really following through on it. And that kind of bothers me. And now that's when I started in LA like 4 years ago. Now that I've been here a little longer and you kind of evolve a little bit to meet your environment, but you have to be yourself and
Yeah.
bullshit stinks. So you might as well be yourself. And that's what I've noticed. Maybe it was from a European client, but she's like, I really appreciate you because when you say you like something, you really mean it. And I think because I'm not so free with compliments and what I'm gonna do for you, people know that when I say it, I mean it, and it kind of rings more true. I don't think people would notice that as much in New York as they do in Los Angeles, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I do know the sort of like California attitude you're talking about where they start to say like, they'll come over to your house and make you dinner or something and they're saying things that they would never intend to do, but they're doing it in order to gain favor. I don't know.
But it's weird.
It
It's
is
like,
kind of weird.
just promise less that you'll actually do. Like, you don't need to run your mouth. That's weird. I think it's weird.
It is weird.
I don't like when people tell stories. To me, it's like,
Yeah.
especially if I didn't ask you for anything. Like, if I asked you for something, sure, like, lie to me to get me to stop asking. But if I didn't ask you for anything, for you to then offer something falsely, it's not a good look, in
I
my
don't think
opinion.
so either.
Yeah.
And then I do want to circle back to just one point related to New York City and Los Angeles being rivals or not being rivals.
Mhm.
One way to sort of frame it is that they're not really rivals because their economies are centered around different industries.
Mm.
Like, I've often heard you say, like, the only other city you'd live in, well, prior to you moving to Los Angeles, was London. And, their economy is very similar to New York City's, and then it's really centered around the financial industry. And then they also have very similar populations. And then when I was sort of, proposing this idea to you earlier this week, you said that you don't really think they're rivals in part because LA's rival would need to be in a similar industry with entertainment.
That's what my client said to me. So my client is I don't wanna speak for her, but she's raised British
Hmm.
with Indian parents. So I think of her as, like, British, English, and then her boyfriend's Canadian, and she's lived in America for, like, 10 years. So she's, like, a true multicultural person.
Yeah.
And I was telling her, I was like, "I'm doing this podcast. I would compare New York to London," and she agreed, and she's lived in both. And I was like, "I don't know what to compare Los Angeles to," and she says, "I would compare it to Mumbai."
Interesting.
Which is the entertainment center of India. So, like, Bollywood is centered around there, and then she was telling me that the state was also quite agrarian. I didn't get a chance to fact check these things, but to have her immediately be like another entertainment-based city
Yeah.
as the natural rival for LA, that made a lot of sense to me.
That is too. I wouldn't have thought about it. But yeah, Bollywood definitely rivals Hollywood in terms of its like central influence on entertainment.
That's what she was saying was that, like, kinda all roads led back to that, and that's sort of the feeling in LA, is, like, obviously, California grows a lot of food, they produce some gasoline, it's a massive, massive economy, but most roads lead back to entertainment. That was sort of the claim she was making about Mumbai, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I've never been to India, but she just kinda, like, pulled it out immediately, and sort of the conviction about that comparison really captured me. And that's why I always say it's like apples and oranges, 'cause if when you compare the 2, they both fall short. Like,
Yeah.
if you're looking for alternative transportation in California, in Los Angeles, it's not gonna work, but if you're looking for, I don't know, great weed and food in New York, it's pretty difficult.
Yeah. And then I want to touch on your idea of New Yorkers being, according to your aunt, some of the most provincial people.
Yeah, my aunt the other day said, "Native New Yorkers are some of the most provincial people you'll ever meet." And I say this because my mom was born in Brooklyn. My mom lives and works within 2 to 3 miles of where she was born, and
Yeah.
my mom be knowing everybody. I can't walk down the street without seeing one of her clients because she's also been in business in the neighborhood for 30 years. And, there'll be people recognize her, and she's like, "Oh, I remember them from back in the day. They went to prison." Like, people remember her from way back when. And another thing is, we always joke that we won't go up above 23rd Street because we'll get altitude sickness. Like, my mom does not go to Manhattan without a good reason. I think my mom goes to Manhattan maybe 5 times a year,
Yeah.
maybe. And when my dad came to New York, my dad came to New York in his 20s. He was born there, but he grew up in the Philippines and Southern California.
Hmm.
And then he came to New York and wound up staying in the neighborhood he was born in without realizing. And he said that he would talk to people about Manhattan. They'd be like, oh, I don't go there. So the idea of this sort of free flow between Brooklyn and Manhattan, it's always been there, but Brooklyn, like, really being on the map to outsiders and being considered safe, I would say is a phenomenon of my lifetime.
Yeah, I remember one time your mom was having a conversation with my friend Devin, and it was when we were at that one. What's that one Korean restaurant that you really like in Brooklyn? That's inspired
Hanyo!
by the. Yeah, it's really good. I love it.
So good.
But your mom was telling my friend Devin about like the very first restaurant that opened in Brooklyn that started to pull people in from Manhattan because it was just so good. It was apparently like an Italian restaurant.
Was it Peter Luger?
It might have been. It was a long time ago that we talked
Steakhouse?
about it. But yeah, something like that.
Junior's Cheesecake is also a big draw.
Yeah.
Um,
But back to the idea of New Yorkers being more provincial than average, I don't really think that's true
hmm.
because, according to national surveys, including by the US Census, nearly 6 in 10 young adults live within 10 miles of where they grew up. And I think that maybe in New York City, the natives are a bit more visible or they seem more visible because there's so many transplants and the transplants tend to marvel at them. But nationally, I mean, most of middle America, you wouldn't, think it's like too strange if 6 in 10 people are living in the hometown they grew up in.
That's so funny because I think about my salon team here, and let's just say there's 10 of us. I think there's only 2 or 3 LA natives.
Yeah.
So that's just interesting to me. And that's something else I think about is I've heard transplants be like, "Oh, New York native, you're such a unicorn, blah blah blah." But for me, it's very easy to connect and meet with other natives because A, I keep friends a long time, and B, we kind of stick together. I don't know. It's very easy for me to find other native New Yorkers even later in life, even not like immediately through my high school clique, for lack of better word.
Yeah, there's what's called a consciousness of kind. I love that phrase. It
Yeah.
just explains when you sort of gravitate towards someone before you realize that you have something in common. And I experienced that with native Chicagoans as well. They're oftentimes very comfortable around the residents of Chicago because they've grown up around them their whole life. There's not the same sort of level of tension that you sometimes see between transplants and residents. And
And I think you lot have an accent.
well, yes, there's a native Chicago accent, but what do you think the accent is?
Yeah, when you see my dad on Wabash.
Yeah.
I just remember you guys do something funny with your A's.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear it in the word Chicago. I don't
Chicago.
think I say it in a very like pronounced way, but yeah, you can hear it. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So, in a little bit, we're going to start to get into bicoastal lifestyles and the advantages that they provide.
hmm
But before we do that, I want to talk to you about some of the pros and cons of New York City and Los Angeles, starting with New York City. So, what do you think some of the pros and cons are?
I love how you can walk and meet most of your needs in New York. I find that to be very European. There's a lot of spontaneity allowed through that lifestyle, the lifestyle of walking, and
Yeah.
spontaneous plans do not really happen for me in Los Angeles. I think because of the car.
Yeah, because of traffic, because of rush hour.
It's like, oh, where am I going to put the car? Can I drink? Am I going to park? Is it going to take 2 hours to get there? So there's a spontaneity in New York. To me, it feels like a freedom of movement that I don't find here. I love New York tap water. When I was a kid, they drove us up to the watershed to show us how they take care of it. And they're really strict about pollution. And
Yeah.
I love New York tap water. It's like, I feel like it's so much better for my skin and my nails. I like drinking it. I feel in touch with my ancestors. I'm on my bullshit with the tap water.
Yeah. I'm trying not to bring up Chicago too much because generally with Joseph, I talk about Chicago all the time. It's nice to talk about other cities for once.
Yeah.
But I do think Chicago has New York City beat on tap water since we have 20% of the world's fresh water.
Okay, Great Lakes. Okay, bottom of the fist.
Yeah. And we also have sort of unique privilege to it. I read a book called The Death and Life of the Great Lakes by Dan Egan. It was for an episode we did on the Fresh Coast. And I learned in that through the Great Lakes Compact, Chicago is the only municipality where when we use water from the Great Lakes, we just get to straight up use it. We don't have to then like treat it and put it back into the lakes. It generally goes into the Mississippi, which in some ways isn't great, but also it's like we literally have like unparalleled access to it.
That also causes that vortex-like cold, so good luck pitching that to anyone not from Chicago.
Yeah, but we're on the other side of the lake effect now. You know,
Allegedly.
we generally don't get so much on this side.
Allegedly. So other pros and cons of New York. I mean, New York is an 8-hour flight from Europe. That's kinda sick. It's
Yeah.
like 14 from here. That's long.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Yeah, their airport access is great.
And this is a little petty, but we are 3 hours ahead. I've heard people who work internationally from LA feel like they're always playing catch up because they're 3 hours behind New York.
Yeah, K-Hole in one of their trend forecasting reports, they talked about how waking up in Los Angeles is kind of like waking up in a dream. Or I don't know if that's how they phrased it, but basically you're always playing catch up and you're always behind. New York's where the action is, and LA is where you kind of learn about what happened on the East Coast through the news, and the day's already started without you in it.
Yeah.
And on that, now we can kind of discuss the pros and cons of LA.
Sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the Europeans here, like I'm just part of like a British expat community a little bit, so they love the sunshine here.
Yeah.
Driving is cool, and the kind of classic thing is, oh, I can go to the beach in the morning and I can snowboard in the evening. I do have a lot of friends who surf. I do not have that many friends who snowboard. So as far as the actual practicality of it, it could be done. I don't know anyone who does it.
What are the nearest mountains people snowboard on?
What is it called? Big Bear. Big Bear's maybe 2 hours away. I've been to Big Bear when I was a kid. I used to go from Orange County.
Yeah.
So my last pro for Los Angeles is the food. The produce here is so much brighter and fresher than New York. The cons, people who blow smoke up your ass. Annoying. Don't like.
Yeah.
The driving is very difficult on my nervous system. My theory is that traffic slows down because there's a sign. Because usually in New York, traffic's red, there's an accident, you look over, you're like, wow, that's a gnarly accident. And then traffic picks up again. Here, there's like no reason. And this happened to you last time. You had a flight at 5 p.m. and I refused to pick you up in the airport. I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like when I'm planning my flights, you either need to land between 11 and 2 or after 8 because otherwise it'll just take you twice the time to get anywhere. Which people do it. I try not to have to.
Yeah.
What else is difficult about LA? So this is just interesting. I work in West Hollywood, which is part of Los Angeles, and West Hollywood has super strict labor laws, and California has super strict labor laws. So me as a salon worker, it's very difficult to find a commission job in Los Angeles because the labor laws are so strict in California. It's difficult for a business to be profitable and pay you minimum wage and all these things. I'm kind of explaining this quickly. But in New York, because there's less strictness about how you hire people and the payment structure, things are so pro-employee in California, it's difficult for businesses to take on staff, and it causes the rise of like independent contractors in California. Like chair rental is way bigger in California than New York because it's almost impossible to find a commission salon in California.
Yeah.
Or in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I think that's like an interesting aside. And the thing about having to drive is I drive a gas-powered car, and I just feel like being so reliant on fossil fuels is very difficult for me to live within my value system because my value system is not interested in fossil fuels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like a captive in that way, and it really bothers me.
Yeah. I do think LA is a lot less car-centric than people make it out to be, though.
Friend, you're very
grew the
tolerant of
most,
walking. A lot of people here like cannot fathom walking 5 blocks. Like it's crazy.
but if you look at the history of the country and when cities began to become more car-oriented, it was around the 50s, 60s, and then it really went into overdrive in the 70s and 80s. And at Los Angeles, it experienced some of its biggest periods of population growth in the 50s and 60s when the country and the pattern of urban development was a bit in between. It was a bit halfway. So there's the potential for Los Angeles to become walkable, to become transit-oriented in a way that other Sunbelt cities have no chance of, like Phoenix, San Diego. A lot of them, they just have no chance. Or actually, San Diego's not a great example. They're actually also kind of halfway there. But Los Angeles, when I go, I get around without a car and it's fine. And I thought it was going to be way worse before I went for the first time. I was actually like nervous to go. I thought I was going to like be putting my life at risk to like walk around and take the trains and things like that. But it was actually very easy to get around, I found.
Yeah. It's hard for me because I live 10 miles from where I work and it's just far enough that like I cannot justify taking twice the travel time. So I've only taken public transportation a handful of times. I'm not opposed to it. But one day was very funny because I was literally coming from like an A-lister's house and I was just like, got time to kill, let me take the bus. And the last thing that drives me crazy about California is I find it to be incredibly classist, and this is back to the car thing, and parking is its own can of worms, but where I live in a working class neighborhood,
Hmm.
parking's tight because population density is high. Where I work, there is permitted parking, which is crazy because that means where I work, if I don't get there early, it's really difficult to find parking. And it's not like you can park on every street. You can only park on certain streets. So it's either like, what, I'm gonna pay the meter for 10 hours a day? You could probably explain better, but I think that's not cool, especially because chances are if you're at more of an entry level position, you probably live very far from where you work. So you're driving all this way to not be able to park. So it's like you're putting all this gas in your car to drive really far to make minimum wage and have nowhere to put your car. It's just annoying to me and it just feels more unfair. And that's the thing about New York is like you got $3, you can go here to uptown. You can go wherever you want.
I mean, that's part of why California has such a big homeless problem. It's because the cost of getting people rehoused and reintegrated into the workforce, it's a much higher barrier if you need to provide someone with a vehicle to get to and from work than
Yeah.
in New York City, where they really just need like a subway pass and then they're good. Like it's much cheaper to get them reintegrated in the workforce there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, like access to public transit is one of the biggest indicators for upward mobility and getting people out of poverty. It really helps.
That's so cool.
And then one way that I think that classism is more visible in Los Angeles than New York City is partly the built environment, because there's such a severe contrast between mansions on the Beverly Hills and, middle class homes in the San Fernando Valley, because more people live in single family homes there. So you can see the amount of wealth that one person has from the outside easier than New York City, where it's concealed within skyscrapers and you don't know exactly how big residences are.
That's interesting because you're saying how you can't really tell. I mean, there's tells, right? Like you walk by that building, it has a doorman, you can see the fixtures, you can tell it's a high-end building. And then there was that trend of those like little skinny needle skyscrapers that had like penthouse views on each of the floors. But the thing in California or with like drone life is like you can kind of look at someone's house from the satellite image and be like, do they have a pool? Do they have a tennis court?
Yeah.
So I just think that's really interesting.
Yeah. So now I think we can address like why be bicoastal, why live in both cities. And I think the place to start is really with economic mobility. So for you and for a lot of other creatives, it's advantageous to live a bicoastal lifestyle because you work freelance and you can get more work if you're moving between both cities, right?
Yeah. So, economic mobility. I mean, for my mentors who are at a tier above me, they're definitely having that situation where they're working for big stars in both places. And like the VMAs is in New York one year, it's in LA the next, and vice versa. And you just kind of have to travel with the talent.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a smaller fish, but I'm kind of controlling my own schedule more. I just like the mix. I can't tell you that it's significantly more profitable for me to be doing both because the flights have their own cost. But as far as doing the work I want to do all the time, I'm in a privileged enough position that I get to do that.
Yeah. So being in a creative field is one economic incentive to live bicoastally. Another is if you're an entrepreneur or own a business, that can, bring you to different cities across the coast in order to get investors, maintain
Yeah.
relationships with them. Another is if you're a business executive or tech mogul. But I think those three, creatives, entrepreneurs, business executives, I see those three groups as being the people that are most likely to live bicoastally. But have you ever heard of The Revolt of the Elites by Christopher Lasch?
I have not.
Yeah, so Christopher Lasch, he was a philosopher. He wrote The Culture of Narcissism. That's his most famous book. The Revolt of the Elites he wrote right before he died in 1995. And honestly, the first two chapters are the only ones that I'm like really into that most people think are the best. But The first one, he talks about how elites at the time, they were becoming increasingly cosmopolitan, mobile, and unrooted. And economic mobility was starting to be linked to general mobility.
Mm.
So people could only find success if they moved. If they were to stay in one place, they were to move down the corporate ladder and be less successful in life. And bicoastal lifestyles, from after I've thought about it more over the course of this week, they're kind of the newest evolution in that habit of elite. So instead of, it's not only just moving and, being willing to move between big cities and be cosmopolitan. Now you really have to maintain your presence in multiple cities in order to ascend to the next level. And that's what I think bicoastal lifestyles are.
It's funny because I feel so defensive when you say elite. I'm like, I'm not an elite. I'm scrappy.
Well, yeah, I think it's a little bit different for creatives because when you're a freelance creative, the way that you make your income is so different than the average worker. But yeah, I think bicoastal lifestyles, they are generally a bit of a status symbol. Another reason to live them is opulence.
Yeah, and I like the part of that that resonated with me was mobile and unrooted,
Mm-hmm.
and that is definitely how I feel. And maybe that's what I was trying to say about Angelinos and New Yorkers kind of running in the same circle. But I've also intentionally put myself in that space. The
Yeah.
salon I work at has both locations. They're going to open a London location, so because of that, I'm always around people who lived in New York, moving to New York, moving back to New York. Like, there's just wind up being, and I think the like calls to like is with that sort of unrooted cosmopolitan
Yeah.
thinking.
No, some people aspire to be a bicoastal simply for, the image of it, the status of it. Like I was Facebook friends with a magazine editor in college who he said he aspired to be bicoastal by 30. And he didn't know if his career was going to demand it or not. He simply
Mm.
wanted to achieve the perception of success that came from having a residence in both cities.
That's so interesting because I was never able to let go of my New York identity. And my feeling was after 4 years in California, I still wasn't happy.
Hmm.
I mean, happiness is a complicated thing, but I would have my other friends like, "Oh, I came back to LA and I'm so excited." I would like come back to LA and be like, "Oh, WTF, like here again." And I get like a little even today, I got here last Tuesday, it's Thursday. I'm here just over a week and I'm ready to go back to New York. I get like a little like itchy feet sort of vibe. I mean, the story about your Facebook friend does feel very superficial to me,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
But there must be some people who do it simply for the image, the prestige that comes with it.
But, you'll be on the plane and you hear people talk. They're like, "Oh, I was in New York and I got sick of the people and I came to LA and I got sick of the traffic." And it's this sort of like flip-flop where it's like you're chasing a high you can't get in the other. And I don't think it's just a grass is greener thing, but they are so different. So it's like once you burn out on one problem, you swap out one problem for another. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fun hell versus boring heaven.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And just like to explain a little slice of my life. So both of my apartments are very small. I'm like not a tiny house, but I'm like less to clean, whatever. So my place in LA is a bungalow. It's 100 years old,
Hmm.
and it's a little craftsman bungalow. And I'm surrounded by trees and stuff. Like I don't share walls or doors with anybody. My closest neighbor is 8 feet away, but I have two parking spots, very coveted, and like in use unit washer dryer. And then my place in New York is an apartment built in the '70s, and I'm, like, across the street from the park. So I feel, like, so privileged and blessed that I get to have these things.
Yeah.
But, in LA, I open the door, my dog walks around the house, she just does what she wants, and then in New York, it's like, "Oh, we gotta put on our boots,
Yeah.
go to the park."
Yeah. And oftentimes it is a bit of a sacrifice. Like if you were to just maintain one residence, it's like you would probably have a bigger one, but there are benefits to both. You get the park in New York City and you get
Yeah,
access to good weather in Los Angeles.
exactly, exactly.
And then another reason to live bicoastally is tax evasion. So in Chicago, sometimes on dating apps, I'll see guys where in their profile, they'll say that they live, say in Texas or Florida for 183 days a year, and then they spend the rest of their time in Chicago, other places. And that's very intentional because apparently there's a legal benchmark called the 183-day rule, which is used to determine if someone can be considered a resident for tax purposes. So with this, I think you kind of need to stretch the definition of bicoastal because thus far, we've just been talking about it in the New York City, Los Angeles dichotomy. And I think in general, like a true bicoastal lifestyle needs to be between a city in the East Coast megalopolis, Boston, Washington, D.C., New York City, Philadelphia, and then anywhere in California. That's the real thing. But if you stretch it to basically any big city plus the Sun Belt, which I don't think you should, but then you get these people that are, living bicoastally for tax evasion.
Yeah, I see people register their cars in different places as well. See, I'm not that clever to do these things. I'm paying taxes in both. So if anyone has an idea about finessing that, I pay taxes in both for a couple years now.
Yeah.
I use the road in both, so yeah.
And I think you should. I think you should pay taxes in both. I mean, when I've seen guys with, yeah, when I've seen that on guys' profiles, I've told them like tax evasion isn't sexy because I think they should live in Chicago all year round if they like it so much. But yeah,
I don't know how that type of thing is even enforceable. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I think we're lucky to live in a country with porous borders. Like, I do not wanna have my shit scanned every time I change states. That's crazy. Like, I'm not looking forward to that. Oof. But snowbirds,
yeah. Do you think snowbird migration is a thing?
I think it's a thing, but I think it's quite generational. I'm in my late 20s. Most of my friends in their 30s are not traveling for warmer weather. I've noticed that I have friends who, like, will spend the first month of the year in Los Angeles or like to go to Europe for the
Yeah,
kind of extended holiday, but I don't know. I do know people who complain about the cold in New York. I don't even think New York's that cold because I spent all of 1 year in Chicago.
yeah. I think the year you were here was one of the colder ones. But so for yourself, when it's winter time in New York City, do you see yourself sometimes trying to spend more time in Los Angeles?
I got really lucky last year, and I missed every cold snap, and I missed every heat wave in LA because my place in LA is not that temperature controlled, so when it's a heat wave, we feel it, and where I live too. So, not intentionally, but by accident, I did miss most of the bad weather because there was one year that it was really cold, and my dad picked me up from the airport, and he brought me a coat because my mom was like, "You are not gonna be prepared." Like, I think I got a couple texts that were like, "It's really cold." It was like a New York week with, like, the single digits.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't really run in a snowboard circle, doesn't mean it's doesn't happen. A lot of people will try to I think it'll be easier for me to sublet my place here in the winter than it was in the summer.
Yeah.
I'm not that bothered by weather, I really like seasons. Seasons are a win for me. I'm actually bothered by the same weather in California. I think that's another thing that makes people weird and lazy.
Yeah.
See, that's what it is, the elephant in the room. New Yorkers think Angelenos are lazy.
Yeah, and I mean, you have so many nice coats. Like you dress really well in the winter.
Thank you. I love leather. I love wool. I like linen, but I don't like the thing in California is like matching sweatsuits. Absolutely not.
No.
No neon elu for me. No, thank you.
Yeah. No, honestly, I think Californians, when they wear outerwear, it is oftentimes just for the aesthetic. Like, and so when they put on hoodies or they put on jackets, they oftentimes fit in ways that I'm a bit skeptical of. Like they're always a little bit too loose and they always look too new because they don't actually need to wear them. They don't wear them every day because it's not cold there.
And then you'll see we saw something the other day and we were dying. It was like you'll be wearing like open toe shoes and a hoodie, or not a hoodie. It'll be like a puffer and open toed shoes. And then me and my friends from New York are like, what are they doing? Like pick a season.
Yeah.
And then I do it. So LOL. Joke's on me.
Yeah. And then one final reason to live bicoastally is if you have familial roots in one of the coastal cities. So you do, in New York City. Do you know anyone else who lives bicoastally who has roots?
I do not.
Yeah, so you're the only one you think, or at least in your social circle.
Honestly, I don't like the word enmesh, but I'm closer to my family and more connected to my family than most of my friends. Most of my friends are a little bit more independent in that way.
It's because your family's so cool.
They are cool. Thank you. Thank you. And I don't take that privilege for granted. I really feel like very gifted in that way. So I will keep pondering that if I know someone else. I would say my client who I just saw this evening, she stays with family in India, but that's like completely different. And she says that when she's in India, things are very regimented and it's like joining a machine.
Hmm.
And I think she's got family in London too. So that would be the only person I can think of offhand.
Yeah, so it's not too common, but that's
No.
another reason to do it. And it does make it easier as long as your criteria is a bit less strict than you were using with literally having 2 apartments.
Yeah, I just have friends who visit their folks in other places that are cool.
And then related to roots, I want to ask the question, is having roots now a status symbol? I kind of think it is because, when Christopher Lasch wrote Rule to the Elites, he was talking about how becoming rootless was associated with high status, with upward mobility. But now, because of gentrification, if you are multi generational, if you maintained a home or a family line in a place that has become, exorbitantly unaffordable, that's impressive from the outside, and not everyone can afford that or manage it. But what do you think? Has it become kind of a status symbol?
So maybe I'm getting caught up in semantics, but to me, a status symbol is something purchased to signal to other people. I think of it as something bought,
Hmm.
or I don't think of it as something you're born with.
Yeah, it's just that previously living in the same place forever would not be associated with prestige. I mean, particularly around the mid-century.
I think there's prestige to a multi-generational home in prohibitively expensive places.
Yeah, there's prestige.
But I just think that's cool in general. I don't know. Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask. I do think it's a gift, and I do think it's rare, but I don't know if it's a status symbol.
Yeah, I'm curious about this because I'm a fifth generation Chicagoan. How many generations has your family been in New York City?
Um, my grandparents were the first, so
So third generation, I believe, right?
yeah, then third generation. Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I meet people, and I say that I grew up here, that alone is kind of bewildering to transplants. They get confused by it. But then when I say my
I know
family's
they think
been
no one
here,
lives there and has kids where they're like, "Oh, no one has kids where I came to make my dreams come true." It's like, "No, people raise kids here."
yeah. I know it's like they think it's just a place to live in your 20s and 30s and then you move out to the suburbs.
Yo, I met this woman and she was like, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah, they're in their New York phase." And I was like, "What?" Like she said it to me and it bothered me so much. And I didn't say anything cuz I was just going to get mad at her. I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah.
They're in their New York phase. Ugh, ugh. I don't know, I brought that up. That's distraction.
Yeah. No, I mean, I encounter people like that too, where they think living in Chicago, it's just something fun to do that you eventually grow out of. But it's like with me, I sort of oscillate between maybe questioning if people think, it's impressive that my family's been here for 5 generations, or if they think I'm a townie. I've started to joke that I am one, which I kind of am, much more than you because I've never actually lived anywhere else. But I don't know. I think I would like to think of it as being a
A little towny
flex.
though.
What?
I think of myself as provincial in a lot of ways. I'm very much a creature of habit. I stick to my own. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't view it as a bad thing.
No, but I'm a fan of tradition in some as long as your tradition's not hurting anybody, like there is a reason that we keep things going, and to have tradition and legacy and kind of a repeated history, I don't think is always a bad thing. Not everything needs to be new all the time.
There are ways of life that are worth being preserved.
Yeah.
Yeah. On big city natives, I oftentimes find I like them more than others on average. Like I have two very close friends, one of them being you, that are from New York City. And I oftentimes find that I like people who grew up in big cities because, they just had childhoods where they were a bit less sheltered and they're oftentimes more well rounded as people as adults.
Yeah, and this was a note I had in our outline, but I do not meet that many native Angelenos. In LA, I befriend that's not true. I've befriended one
Hmm.
native Angeleno, but even her, she's from like Pasadena and Washington. She had like a very transient childhood. But I meet a lot of like international people in LA. But I
Yeah.
do find myself gravitating towards New York natives, and we're really good at finding each other. Like you were saying of the cult,
Consciousness of kind.
yeah, consciousness of kind.
Yeah, in Chicago, my friend group now is primarily transplants. And once you get that ball rolling, it's kind of harder to, get people into the friend group organically that also grew up here. I mean, I have
Yeah.
friends from high school and college, but once you're in a bubble like that, it kind of stays that way.
What's the area code for Chicago? 373?
Like for telephone, it's 773 or 312.
773?
Yes.
I mean, when you're on the apps, aren't you like way more stoked when someone texts you from a 773? You're like, Mi
Yeah.
gente. My people.
You want to hear something somewhat embarrassing? So my first phone I got in high school, my dad bought it off Craigslist, and he bought it from someone probably in Naperville because I had a 630 area code. And then I got off of my family plan and bought my own phone, and I chose to get a new number. That was a 773 number because I was sick of getting branded that way. Even though I don't think anyone really cared, but it meant something to me.
No, that's real. That's so real.
Yeah.
My brother has a 718. My brother's 6 years younger than me. I'm like, how dare you have the OG? Or he's got a 917. I'm like, how dare you have the OG cell phone? Because I got a 347. He's got a 917.
But 212 is the most coveted in New York City.
Yeah, but no one's got a 212 cell number. 212 is like businesses and stuff,
Oh.
like landline.
Yeah, it got phased out a long time ago, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I just want to conclude with one final question that's kind of fun. So recently on TikTok, there was a debate over what America's fourth major city is after New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago. And there was a debate because many people consider Houston to not be major enough in different ways. And so if you were to like throw out a guess, what do you think America's fourth major city is?
What about Louisville?
Really?
Louisville's kind of big, but my partner's from Kentucky, so I have a little bit more experience there. But they've got the horse racing. They're agrarian. They have an international airport. I don't know. I don't think Houston. I'm sorry. That's so see. That's a New Yorkism. I don't think Houston is that cool. Like the only cool thing to come out of Houston is Beyonce,
Wow.
right?
uh,
Where's the lie? Where's the lie?
yeah. I was not expecting you to say Louisville, but oftentimes people's perception of what the fourth major city should be is shaped by their own local experience. That's something that some of the articles read this week talked about. But for me, I would say it's San Francisco because
Yeah.
when I think about the term fourth major city, I stress the city part. And, San Francisco, it actually has a skyline, unlike Washington, D.C., which a lot of people consider. And it has a really big metro system and it punches above its weight with its economy due to the tech industry. So I think it's major and actually a city, unlike a lot of other big cities that people consider.
My beef with SF, and hopefully I don't get canceled for this, is like you reach a critical mass of software engineers and there goes the culture. Like boring, boring, boring. Yawn.
Yeah.
Bye.
I mean, I think that white collar workers do bring a certain vibrancy to a city because they're oftentimes so stressed and trying to get places. They make it feel more energetic. But if your workforce is primarily working from home and those workers are not on the streets, then yeah, I can see how it kind of detracts from the overall vibe.
Well, it's the lack of diversity. You know what I mean? It's just like you need a mix to be juicy and interesting. And when you have like too many of like the same type of worker, I just think it gets like ugh.
Yeah. A lot of cities have at least one industry they're specialized in, though.
Yeah.
LA's being entertainment. But according to a USA Today poll, though, I actually looked into this, the most popular choice people picked was Washington, D.C., which I think is fine, but they literally don't have any skyscrapers because of a height restriction.
Hmm.
Like, they don't have the actual city part that would make them a good candidate in my mind. But
So you like SF for fourth city?
yeah, that would be my bet. But also, it's also shaped by personal experience because my mom's side is from there and I've been there many times. So it is partly shaped by my own experience.
Yeah, I wonder how Louisville does with the numbers. I think a lot about mobility. I think a lot about international mobility and business. Like Amazon or Zappos or something is based in Louisville. Like so, and then they have this like horse thing and the whiskey
Yeah.
thing, which maybe it's not as big as I'm giving it credit for, but that's what I thought about. But I don't know about the skyscraper. It's maybe not a city in that way.
Yeah.
It's got a downtown, but the downtown's like cute and quaint.
Yeah. I mean, there's only two US cities with over 100 skyscrapers, New York City and Chicago. Everywhere else has less than 50 in total.
Cool. Well, I felt like we covered a lot. Do you have any other questions?
No, thank you for doing this episode with me. I had a lot of fun discussing it. We have a lot of listeners on Silent Generation in both New York City and Los Angeles. And hopefully we didn't piss them off and they enjoyed us talking about their respective cities. But yeah, please be nice to us. And thank you. And then do you have anything you want to plug? So people should go follow you at Nevadastyles on Instagram so that they can see the work that you've done with hair, because you've done some really cool work.
Thank you. Yeah, if you guys wanna give me a follow, that's cool. Even if hair content's not usually your thing, I have a couple people who are like, "Oh, I love the stuff you make," and I don't usually follow hair stuff, so I have a good time, I like to share it,
Yeah.
and, I don't know, slide into my DM if you wanna fight. I'm just kidding.
Or slide into your DM if you want to book an appointment, because you're always
Yeah,
looking for
that
more
part, that's
clients.
better.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
always building our clientele, so yeah, thanks so much, Nathan.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Silent Generation.
Bye.